All right. So we just press record, and we're curious and have pretty much some excitement to see where this leads, because we listened to pretty much one of the only people out there who's talking about the new covenant, and we listened to someone who called in with some concerns about their son, and what we heard was what Jesus describes as people mixing the old wine with the new wine. So basically, it's like a person talking out of both sides of their mouth. So if you've ever been sitting there listening to the message, whether that's in any church or just something just isn't adding up, you're not alone. That's how Dan got to where he is decades ago. His eyes opened to this. That's where I began decades ago, wondering like, man, something just doesn't feel right. And it feels like you're in a math class and they're saying 2 + 2 = 5. And you're like, no, something's just not right. And then with speaking out of both sides of your mouth, it's like an equation where they're taking one thing on one side of the equation and dropping it over here. So mixing the old wine with the new wine, what Jesus meant is mixing the old covenant, the law, with the new covenant, which he ushered in by fulfilling the old covenant. And there's very few people out there who talk about the new covenant, and it can be confusing. However, when you hear it, the confusion for those who are ready to hear goes away, and now you're like, aha, it makes sense. 2 + 2 = 4. Now, it doesn't sound like people talking out of both sides of their mouth. Oh, you're saved, Jesus died with sin, but you're still sinning. I mean, it's a very confusing thing to hear. So we're talking about the new covenant, and we're talking about some things where it's going to be fun. So grab your pen, paper, get ready to ask us some questions. And Dan, where do we begin on this topic? We were just laughing a second ago because it's like, whoa, no wonder I was confused. And no wonder others are confused, wondering like, wait a minute. I feel good about what I heard, but I got to make sure I'm like Jesus or else I don't get in. Like it's an all-inclusive group. It's not an exclusive group. That's something that you shared with me, that a lot of people think, hey, it's only this inclusive group who does these right things and says these right things and never does anything what anyone else would determine wrong. Well, guess how many is going to be in that? 0, right? Or what the new covenant ushered in, it's an all-inclusive. You, everyone around the world, whether they believe in a rock or whatever they think, feel, and gets them through the day, it's not a relationship that they choose, it's a relationship that God chose with you. That's a big one.
Yeah, wow.
It's deep.
It's no wonder people are confused.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, it's sad, man. So, yeah, we have some tough things. It's hard. There's some things. It's just tough to get over. And so, we still think, we believe that this realm that we walk in is about us and how we're behaving. It's about us and how we're performing. You know, I go to church when the doors open and I read my Bible and I have my daily devotion and I go to prayer meeting, I go to Bible study, and I take this calling and that calling, and I go to confession, and I do all these things. But then I have real life every day going on. Mm-hmm. And how does that connect? Where is God in my day to day?
As you were saying that, I thought back to school with the little stars and the little check marks and the 100%.
Right.
God's not grading me, you, or anyone as, well, Dan got a 95 on this one, but a 0 on this one. Like, it's not that God's there with the checklist looking at what actions you're doing or what actions you're not doing. Is that fair to say?
It's what's going on out there in the building with the teacher is that we are not teaching the difference between the old covenant message and the new covenant message.
Which is the true good news. That's the gospel.
That's the mystery of God.
Mm-hmm.
But we're just not teaching people that. And so what's happening is I mean, we're just, the only issue that we have out there, the only issue that we talk about is sin and what the enemy's doing. Oh my gosh, we spend all of our time on sin and what the enemy's doing. And then we're looking for a manifestation. We need a manifestation to see how we're doing. That's why people get caught up in tongues and all wrapped around the axle. Listen, folks, anything that has got us all wrapped around the axle or has us caught up in something that's distracting us from the finished works of Jesus Christ, hey guys, we need to sit down and go time out. And we need to know what the finished works of Jesus Christ means. Because some point in time, we got to start believing in Jesus Christ. And believing in what He did. Instead of being all caught up in how we're doing.
And sin and the enemy. Because the finished works of Jesus Christ, sin and the enemy died.
We're all caught up in sin and the enemy.
Which means you aren't believing in the works and the finished works of Jesus Christ.
Which means we're not believing in the finished works of Jesus Christ.
So, Dan, I felt people when you said that, when we start believing in Jesus. Some people out there are like, I believe in Jesus. Yet, as you mentioned, they're focused and they're talking about sin and the enemy and all these things that finished and were done and completed with Jesus.
Yeah. Well, the problem is, this sin thing, we think it's like progressive or something. We're getting like a progressive sanctification. Like we're
not
constantly,
so bad.
Yeah.
This one wasn't so bad. This one's that's outside the circle of forgiveness.
Guys, it says in Hebrews chapter 10. I'm gonna throw one out for you, okay? Hebrews chapter 10. Go read it. He sacrificed once. Okay, and that's it. We don't need to keep going to Him for some more blood. Okay, He did it once. Okay, and that was the end of sin and the enemy. Okay, He said He came to destroy the works of the devil. So what are you trying to do? Tell me He failed? So what are we still talking about the enemy for? While we're talking about the enemy, we're still talking about the enemy because we still are caught up in our right and wrong, good versus evil belief system, which was supposed to pass away.
With Jesus fulfilling the old covenant.
Fulfilling the old covenant, which was the message of the knowledge of good and evil.
That tree died.
That tree died. That message died.
The law died.
And we keep operating in it.
Which goes back to, when are we going to believe in the finished works of Jesus Christ?
And that is why we are convinced this devil guy is still out there running around creating havoc. And so we keep looking out there in this realm, and we keep connecting these things that we see as bad.
God wouldn't do that.
God wouldn't do that. We see as bad. We connect it to the bad guy. So we're convinced He's still alive. And He's ruling this world. He's the prince of the world. Well, guess what? The prince of the world died. And so that's why it says when they were out in the wilderness, they said, when you see the serpent on the pole, ye shall live. Well, Christ became the serpent on the pole. And He died as sin. It says He became sin. And it says that man died with Him. So you died. And He fulfilled that belief system that is still ruling your life. everything that pops up, you're going, well, that's good, that's bad, well, that's not good. Well, that's just evil. Now, here we go. Now, listen, some point in time, we got to start going, you know what? That's the foundation of my belief system.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm operating off of.
And who are we to judge God's works?
Yeah, so what we're doing is we're just convinced that we're living in this dualism belief system that we keep being taught over and over and over again, that God's doing the good stuff and Satan's doing the bad stuff and Satan's still alive. Listen, the Christian world has got to put the devil to death. We got to die to our self-belief, and we got to start dying to this belief system that says the devil is still out there doing something.
It's all God.
I mean, when in the world are we going to start believing in Jesus Christ?
In his finished works.
It's 2,000 years down the road.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, did he fulfill the knowledge of right and wrong belief system or not? And so what's happening out there, is the teacher, he's still out there teaching about your sin and your behavior.
Your enemy.
And it ought not to be. Thou shalt not. And the enemy and holy crap.
Which means they're not believing in the finished works of Jesus
And
Christ.
we are not teaching the finished works of Jesus Christ.
And why? Why? Because that would undermine the whole foundation that Jesus, when he fulfilled that, got everyone in an uproar. Because he was going against what the foundation and the establishments represented. And it's been built stronger and wider and deeper since, ironically. It would uproot the whole law.
Listen, we some point in time, we got to come to an understanding that this realm we walk in, the foundation of the belief system of the realm we walk in is this is right and that's wrong. And listen, so much are normal. We've been in this for so many
Generation after generation.
generation after generation, and we just keep teaching this.
Well, and it makes sense because that's what we were taught. Here's what's right, here's what's wrong.
Absolutely.
Do this, don't do that. And so we were taught it, and it's our role to go teach it, and it's a continual
recycling this message.
Right. And all this is for, A, to connect the dots, but B, to give you peace and rest. Because when I was listening to the other person who's one of the few who talks about the new covenant, and he was mixing the old wine with the new, and it was confusing. Like, it literally was like, no wonder I was so confused.
It was so clear.
It's clear.
So
God, don't worry. God died with sin, but you better not sin. right. Wait a minute. And it's all, and God's answering your prayers or not based upon how you're acting or not. You better act good, and you do, your son will stay alive. If you don't, your son's going to die. How about that? It's all on. And so this, what we're telling you is, this is all God, yet we still have that perception of like, man, from my point of view, that sucks. Let's just lay it out on the table. There's going to be personal and worldly things happen that from our perspective suck. Like, man, but here's the great news, and here's the peace and rest. Man, God, this one has me sad beyond belief. This one has me, really not understanding. But guess what? I do understand. You've got it, and you have it under control. I can't see it from my perspective, but I know you can, and I thank you. Help me have some peace and rest with this. It comes in trusting.
It's tough because we just grow up with this belief system
of good and bad, right?
Well, the message in the building, it agrees with the thing we ate from in the garden that defined sin. Because without your knowledge of right and wrong, good versus evil belief system, you'd be going, sin.
What's that?
What the heck's sin? Right?
It'd be like
Your enemy, who's the enemy?
Yeah.
Why? Because you don't have that knowledge. So now that you have that knowledge, okay, and it caused you to go do this thing you call sin, which was disobedience to God, okay, well, that's what runs the world. The byproduct of what you are seeing out in that world that you are claiming the enemy is doing, the byproduct, the thing that's the power behind that thing that's taking place is your belief system that you keep feeding off of, that the teacher's not telling you about. He's not telling you about that belief system. So you're sitting under a message of dualism and performance. And every interpretation you're getting is about behavior. My gosh, we got churches you go into today, it's like going into a group therapy. Guys, Christ's finished works, okay, whether we see ourselves this way or not, here it is. He justified you. He reconciled you. He sanctified you. He perfected you, and He made you holy. Now that is believing in Jesus Christ. So that's how He sees you. That's who you are. And He says, when you partake in my flesh and blood, in my will and my power, then we'll be one. I'll be in you and you'll be in me. The problem is you still see yourself as separated from God, as an independent self, operating in your right and wrong, good versus evil belief system. And guess what? The cross fulfilled that belief system. And so that belief system needs to die. It needs to pass away. And the problem is, it's so much your normal. It's so much of who you are. You can't comprehend a world without that belief system.
So then what happens when you accept that gift? When you accept what Jesus fulfilled to you is the peace and rest. I mean, it changed it from the word to now rewritten on your heart. And instead of me thinking, man, is this what God wants me to do, or is that what God wants me to do? All I do is chat with God on a regular basis, connect with God and talk with God and Jesus in my heart, and take one step after the next. And it's one heck of a journey, I'll tell you that much. And it doesn't go as planned. I'll also throw in that. Think about the disciples that were with Jesus back then. They weren't greeted with open arms everywhere they went. This message isn't greeted with open arms. This just like it wasn't received well 2,000 plus years ago, isn't so received well by the establishments that run by the old covenant and run by the law. Because this disrupts that.
I get people, I say this stuff and man, they get all upset. They think I'm sending somebody to hell.
Oh man, and it connects with all.
We just keep believing this.
That God's waiting on you to do the right thing today, me to do the right thing today. No, God's got it good. God created all this before we even showed up.
Okay.
Should we remind them of that?
No, the problem is we're telling people that they have to choose Jesus.
Yeah.
And what does the Bible says? No man cometh unto the Son unless he be drawn by the Father. So nobody's choosing somebody. Nobody's making it happen.
It's not our choice. It was God's choice.
Listen, I don't know why we started connecting stuff to ourselves.
ego.
Okay? Yeah.
Yeah.
That ego just keeps telling us that.
Well, everyone thinks that, well, if I was God, I'd run it a little bit. Here's what I would do. Well, guess what? God's got it pretty good. He figured it all out. He's got it done.
We're not going to teach people the new covenant. We're not going to do it. And if we do stand up and talk about it, what we're going to do is we're going to give them an old covenant interpretation of the new covenant.
Mm-hmm. Is what most are doing, right?
Which is what, if I ever hear it, I sit there and listen to it and I go, holy crap.
The old wine with the new
How
wine.
did he come up with that? He just wrapped the law all around the new covenant.
Talking out of both sides of the mouth. Yeah.
So, I'm sorry, I'm a little upset today.
Well,
it's sad. Listen, man, I'm 62 years old. I'm tired of listening to this crap.
I was in
Holy
awe.
crap, we got the whole world out there believing in the right and wrong, good versus evil belief system.
How's that
and
working out?
And the Christian world's behind it.
Yep. Because no one takes the time out, like you were talking about earlier, and says, what did Jesus come here to do, and what did he fulfill? What are the finished works?
So,
and as you said, did he complete it or not? And what most interpretation is, well, almost. He's at about 99% of the way there, but he needs you to finish the journey. And it's all on your shoulders. Everyone else that you run into is either going to be saved and brought to hell, or condemned, or condemned to hell, or brought to heaven based on your actions. Jesus and God didn't leave it like that. That's the good news. That's the good news of the new covenant. What's yours to do is to get to know God. Feel God on your heart.
guys,
And do what you feel called to do.
Once you get hold of this, it just makes sense, right?
Well,
It's just like, are you kidding me? But
the one thing, it won't exclude you from difficulties and challenges. Matter of fact, you're going to see them.
Yeah, I've talked to some guys and they think, oh my gosh, my business, I'm gonna make a bunch of money.
Yeah, right.
Life.
Hey, but what it does is give you a different perspective of peace and rest, and being able to connect more with God and say, hey, like, man, we all have stuff going on. I'm like, man, God,
It takes care of your every day, right?
I didn't imagine I'd be in this situation right here now, but this is not a surprise to you. So I thank you, because God had this all created and done before we got here, by the way. So we're in this time construct that we have, but God doesn't work in space and time.
We take God, who's this, and we go like this.
Yep.
That's who God is.
This moment
That's
right
what
here.
man does.
Yep.
Man takes God, he goes like this.
Yep.
He just does this.
Yep.
He just does this.
It's no surprise to God that I am going through what I'm going through. Dan's going through what he's going through. You're going through what you're going through, and the billions of other people are going through what they're going through. This is not a shock to him. He's kicked back watching the completed puzzle piece, and, rest easy. Do you trust me or not? And that's one of the things you taught me a while back. Imagine God asking you, believing in the works, the finished works of Jesus Christ. Do you trust me? Do you trust me? But God, this is definitely is bad. This definitely.
I think
Do you
that's
trust
really the questions. Do we really believe in Jesus Christ?
Yeah. Do you
Do
believe?
we really know who God is?
Mhm.
He said in Isaiah, I do both the good and the evil, saith the Lord. When the Christian's friends came to Job, he says, what? What? You take the good, but not the bad from God? I mean, who killed Job's kids?
Mhm.
It says God in a whirlwind.
Mhm.
Joseph, he says, the problem is, my brothers, you saw it as bad and I meant it for good.
Mhm.
Listen, we've
Mhm.
in this knowledge of right and wrong, good versus evil belief system, we've created this thing that says, if there's a bad thing, there's got to be a good thing. If there's a bad guy, there's got to be a good guy. If there's a bad place, there's got to be a good place. Well, all of that is formed out of that belief system that we ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil in the garden, which the teacher is not going to tell you about. He's not going to talk to you about that.
Well, that's not important.
But
that's not
I'm
important.
just saying.
They'll say that's not important.
I'm sorry, man.
2 trees. One was made delightful to the eye. Like, and that's another thing. This was not a surprise to God, right? When I first read it, well, a couple of things in the Bible when I read Jesus saying, "Oh, ye of little faith," I pictured him being mad. "Oh, ye of little faith." Now I picture him laughing like, "Really? You still don't get it? You still don't see what I've done and am capable of?" Same thing with God. We think it was a surprise to God that he made it delightful to their eyes and they ate from it. Like, this all was a completed puzzle piece.
We're out, and we're still out there. We're searching the scriptures. And what does he say in the scriptures? He says, man has no excuse because of my creation. Listen, guys, this is a manifestation. If we didn't have this, guess what? Are you telling me we wouldn't know who God is? He says we have no excuse for it. Why? Because of my creation. We can't see God?
Everywhere.
The problem with us not being able to see God is because we're all caught up in ourselves. And what we're doing and what we're not doing. Well, guess what? You're not doing anything. You are not the power source behind the doing. You are not who you think you are. You're not something. You are nothing. We should be starting with our nothingness instead of, look at me. Look at all the things I've created in my self-power. What are we going to do? Are we going to show up with our harvest? Are we going to show up with our harvest?
In the good and evil and right and wrong, there's a story. I'll probably mess the story up. It just came to me as you were chatting. There's a farmer, and he's a small family on a farm, and there's a son, and the son goes out and finds a horse, brings the horse back. They're like, "Oh, wow, that's lucky." And everyone in the town's like, "Man, you're so lucky." The father's like, "Well, it is what it is." Well, while trying to train the horse, the son fell off and broke his leg. "Oh, man, that's so unlucky. Man, that's just not right." The father said, "Well, it is what it is." Then the horse ran away. Actually, no, before the horse ran away, the military came and said they were going to take all the boys of that age, but they couldn't take him because he had the cast on. He was broken. So, "Oh, you're so lucky. You didn't have to go to the military. So lucky." Well, it is what it is. The horse that ran away ran into a couple friends and brought 2 others back. So now there's 3 horses. "Oh, man, you're so lucky." And the farmer once again said, "It is what it is." I mean, bottom line is he took the good with the bad. And everyone makes the judgment. So that's good and that's bad and that's right and that's wrong. But when we're just on the path, and the farmers are a great analogy because I grew up on a farm as a child, the law of sowing and reaping. As you sow, so shall you reap. And the farmers, we go out and we till the field, we plant the seeds, we cover the seeds, we water them, we fertilize them, we pull the weeds out and stuff. God takes care of the rest. And then we're able to reap the harvest. We just do what's ours to do one step and one day at a time. In essence, touching bases with God. Hey, what's mine to do? And in doing that, amazing how God will throw circumstances in that others will judge as right and wrong or good and bad, but it is what it is.
We wonder why we look out the window and we see a judgment blaming society.
Mm-hmm.
We wonder.
This phone has an iOS operating system. The operating system of the world is the knowledge of good and evil.
Think about it. The new covenant is in the Bible. You ever hear it? The teacher ever stand up and talk about it? Has the teacher ever talked about the tree of the knowledge of good and evil and what that means to your belief system? Seriously? Have you ever heard it? It's in there.
And that's what Jesus came to fulfill, the old covenant, and bring in the new covenant. And it's not talked about. And that's what's so eye-opening. And that's where...
You know why? Because we're all busy talking about sin.
Right. And the bad guy. Yeah.
And about self-improvement. Mm-hmm. And about performance.
Mm-hmm. So our hope in doing this is to,
I mean, we're out there trying to take the devil down.
who's already, but the good news is it's not hard because we didn't have to do the hard work. Jesus did it all. We're not, and it's just, yet
I'll tell you.
the hint, I mean, it's like it's like a tall tale.
I'll never forget it.
It's a tall tale, yeah. The tall tale won't die.
The last church I was going to, a long time ago. I'll never forget it. I went to this men's retreat thing. Walk into the building. And man, there's probably, I don't know, 5,000 guys there. And these guys were all down there, you know. It's a huge place and big stage and kind of like a dance floor area, big area. Maybe where the orchestra pit was, I guess. They're down there casting out the devil. You know. Before, you know, the service began. You know.
I love that. And you knew what you knew? Yeah.
Casting out the devil.
Mm-hmm.
And then, after we casted out the devil, then we're spending time waiting for the Spirit to show up.
Holy Spirit.
So everything's a manifestation. You know, man's all caught up in a manifestation. We need a demonstration. Well, God, just give us a demonstration. Give us a sign.
You know when there's a sign? Every breath we take. It's all around. We're like a fish in a bowl that doesn't notice the water. The sign is every second is a miracle.
We're looking for some air.
We're in the air looking. The air is the miracle.
Anyway.
And we're looking for a miracle. And we have stories, and you have stories of, well, if this wouldn't happen, then this wouldn't happen, and that. Guess what? That's our entire journey. God has orchestrated it all. The maestro orchestrating our little brief in this space-time continuum that we are in. It's already orchestrated. And it's done. It's the finished works.
We're just walking through what God did before time and space. And the problem with that is man can't wrap his head around that. See? So guys, that's what the believing God is. And what will happen is man will say, I can't tell you how many times I've had people come up to me and say, well, Dan, you're taking it too far. You're just taking it too far. I was in the last Bible study I was in. Of course, you know. Dan, you're just taking it too far. This grace thing.
Grace has limits. Grace has limits.
Dan, you're just taking it too far. I mean,
that person's out of the limits of grace.
God, he does certain things. Okay.
But then the enemy jumps in.
But, you know, Dan, you can't forget the devil. I mean, he knows how to trick us. Mm-hmm. Holy crap, 2,000 years after the death of Christ, and we're still talking about the devil.
We're still not believing in the finished works of Jesus. What did Jesus say about the devil?
And the reason why we're not believing is that the teacher isn't teaching it. Okay? And we keep on relying on the teacher, and we don't understand the teacher's right in here.
The truth.
And so, but we don't make that connection.
But what you do, you wouldn't be watching this if you weren't like me, if you weren't like Dan, like, man, something's missing.
Yeah.
Like, this is what's
if you're
missing.
out there like us, you know, growing up, and you're going, I
don't feel
I have
peace
all
and
these
rest.
Questions.
I feel more burdened.
I think the question is, you need to ask yourself, why do you have all these questions?
Do you believe in the finished
Why
works
do
of
you
Jesus?
have all these questions? I mean, why have you been going to church for 10, 15, 20 years and you have all these questions? It's because that stuff doesn't add up.
We have chats.
And if it's not adding up for you...
Hopefully this adds it up. This takes the wrong... I mean, it's mixing the old wine with the new wine, which is
Go talk
mixing...
to God, man.
In an equation, a math equation, taking one element and putting it in another side, you can't just do that. It's just us. So now we've removed that confusion, hopefully, and guess what? We've had these chats with people on the street and friends that have come in and they're
Oh
like,
my gosh.
oh, it makes sense. This makes sense.
I'll talk to somebody in a coffee shop who is a Christian and goes to church such and such.
But doesn't know Jesus'
And
finished
man,
work.
as soon as I start saying something about the new covenant, it's like, wait a minute.
Taking it too far, some people. Some are ready to hear. Hopefully you're ready to hear this.
But it's amazing. I do run into people, they'll sit there and go, wow.
Makes sense.
I never heard that. It makes total sense. You know? But anyway, man, it's
There's a lot.
I gotta tell you something, man, it hurts me, man. It really hurts me, man. And it was it was, you gotta understand, it was a hard, and I mean, it's hard to leave the church, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
My wife, she left the church. I left another church. It was hard. And you're just indoctrinated into that stuff. And you think that you know, God's going to strike you down, you know, you're not doing the right thing anymore. You know? And oh my gosh, there's...
And let's clarify, like, it's not because people are bad, it's not because, it's only because if you're sitting in a math class and teachers are teaching you 2 + 2 = 5, you're just like, it's hard to listen, it's hard to
not
listen.
sitting there going, how
No.
can I, you know...
They're teaching what they know.
These people.
Right.
Listen, it's just,
They're
they go to
teaching-
Bible study, they go to seminary, they go to Bible school.
You learn the Old
And
Covenant.
from generation to generation, they keep teaching the Old Covenant.
Right. So yeah, they're teaching what they know and they feel is helping and doing their work. And so, you know.
And they think, here's the thing. People think the Old Covenant is the Ten Commandments.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or they think that the covenants, okay, it's the Ten Commandments and the Jewish, you know,
Law.
Torah and, you know, Leviticus. Okay? Listen, guys, a law is a law. Anything that says thou shalt not, it's a law. And that's why Christ was making up laws when he's talking to the Pharisees in the Gospels. Okay? A law is a law. Okay?
And I like the way you described that. It's like he kept expanding the law and making it so where the proof was like, look, man's trying to say they can do it, and God's trying to tell you you can't. But the good news is, I'm going to do it for you, and that's what Jesus did.
I mean, it's hard for us. Like this liberty thing, this freedom thing, this grace thing, it's like...
Well, it has limits. Yeah, grace. Our mind can't
It's like
think the
we're
way.
afraid of it or something.
Well, let's be clear. Our mind doesn't think like God thinks.
Well,
I mean, if we were in charge, we'd be
you're
doing it
trying
different.
to tell me you have the liberty or you have the license to sin? Well, why in the world are we still talking about sin?
Yeah.
Why is that even in our vocabulary? That is just mind-blowing to me. We are still, 2,000 years after the death of Christ, we're still talking about the devil and sin.
This popped in my mind as you said this. I've been to Africa, and we went on a safari in Uganda. While we were on a safari, we see monkeys and elephants and giraffes doing their thing. I don't get out with a stick and like, hey, that's bad, bad. You are not supposed to do that. I mean, nature is nature.
They know what they're doing.
And nature just does what nature does. Yet we are the animals that have the stick.
It's different with us.
Right. But, you know, so God has nature happening, and then we, with the knowledge of tree of evil and knowledge of good and evil, think that we have the judgment of what's right and wrong, what's good and bad.
And we're an independent self with our own will and power operating our free will.
Mm-hmm.
And listen, the teacher has put so much bad things about that into the air. Man, I hear people talk, well, you're a Calvinist. I'm like, holy crap, what in the hell is a Calvinist?
I don't even know.
Like I went and read up on Calvinism or something.
Believe in the finished works of Jesus.
I mean, what I'm saying is the teacher is always going to categorize you and give you an ism.
Label. Yeah.
They're going to label you. Well, what does the world do? What is the world doing out there? Well, they're labeling everybody. Well, why are we labeling people?
True.
They got an ism for everything. Man, I go out there and I talk, and all of a sudden I'm ism this and I'm ism that. Well, you know, I've heard, man, I'm telling you, I talked to my pastor, man, and he says that what you really are is this ism.
Huh.
Well, he's kind of like, one time it was like 3 of them. I was like a Jewish.
You're a mix.
It was like 3, I was a hybrid, like 3 different kind of things
Right.
they came up with.
Label. That's
Yeah.
Versus.
And so apparently,
Right.
that was a bad thing.
Right.
That they could like label me, and then to the world, that's, well, see, I labeled him, and now say he's a bad
Yeah,
thing.
right. Instead
So
of,
he's an ism.
well, God forbid you believe in the finished works of Jesus.
What in the world?
So why do we do this? We do this
Yeah.
because we love talking and getting to know God, and we also love just opening for the right people, possibly connecting the dots and having you look at the new covenant and
Yeah,
have the
and-
peace and rest that comes with it.
Hopefully, I mean, we'll see what God does with this, but, you know, wouldn't it be something if there was a generation that showed up and got sick of themselves?
We're able to connect and just have
I'm
conversations.
sick of myself.
Yeah.
I'm sick of being caught up
Mhm.
in all this message from the world. You know what? I'm just going to start believing in God.
And the finished
That's
works.
it. Me and God.
Mhm.
That's it. I'm going to stop believing in how I'm doing, what I'm up to, what I think I'm up to, and connecting that to myself. I'm just going to believe in God.
Mhm.
Wouldn't it be something?
And see it all as it's
Wouldn't
all
that be
God.
something?
It's all God. There's not a bad guy. There's not a good guy. It's all God.
You talk about a peculiar people.
Yep.
Yeah, there'd be a huge contrast
Mhm.
out there.
So the finished works of Jesus. Take a look at that.
It's the finished works of Jesus Christ, man. And that is the mystery of God. And it's a thing that's going to bring you peace and rest. And listen, God's got you, and He's got this world, okay?
Trust it.
And you know, people, I've had people say, well, Dan, why do you even say anything? And I get that. I really do. I get that. For some reason, Tom and I met and we just decided, hey, let's get together and just talk.
Throw the camera. Yeah.
When you open up YouTube
Yeah.
and you hear all this stuff, holy crap, I've seen people on panels talking about God, and I go,
Whoa. We're talking about the old covenant. Yeah.
it's like a message.
Behavior.
It's like a message constructed by man.
Yep. Do this. Don't do that.
It's like, I mean, it's something that man with this man understanding would come up with. Somebody who hasn't transformed himself and understood that, guess what? I'm no longer me, but He that lives within me. Well, that changes your whole world.
That's huge. And guess what? The people that were with Jesus, they had a hard time grasping this. Because they too were born and raised, generation after generation.
All they saw was the Jewish world.
Yeah.
That's all they saw, man. All they saw was the temple. What were they up to? Well, they were trying to keep the law. So they didn't know anything else. That's all they knew. So they just went and copied what they knew. They didn't know anything else. Jesus shows up and gives them a completely different message, and they're looking at him like, huh? It's no different than me going down to the coffee shop and trying to talk to somebody, and they go, huh? Well, what about the devil?
Yep. Yep. Yep.
So we're now 2020.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So anyway,
Hope this gives you some peace and
man,
rest.
I hope you can get a hold of this. I know, believe me, I know this is hard, and it's not something you've ever heard. But the new covenant, it says, I'm going to write my word on the hearts of my people. No longer will neighbor show neighbor. No longer will brother teach brother. And I'm going to save them, and they are going to be my people, from the greatest to the least, and I'm going to remember their iniquities no more. And man, oh man, oh man, if we can get a hold of that, it'll change your life. And that's why Tom and I are up here talking about this. And, I hope you can get a hold of it.
Yep. We love you. God loves you. Jesus loves you. Look forward to hearing from you. Leave us a comment. Look forward to hearing what resonated with you on this message. We'll talk with you soon. Bye for now.